Let's speak with Ralph Schulhammer, political theorist. Good afternoon to you, Ralph. Nice to speak again, sir.
Good afternoon, Ian. Great to be on.
It seems to be, it's a bit of a go-to card, isn't it, for left-wing politics? If the chips are down, if life's a bit tough, you know, where do we go for? We've got to look for an injustice. We've got to look as if we're on a mission. I know what we'll do. We'll play the class card. Easy. It's rule one in the Socialist Handbook.
Well, I think the difference is not so much right and left, it's moronic and non-moronic. And I have to admit, I'm usually a very calm person, but Ed Miliband, or as I would like to call him, Ed, let's see how expensive electricity can get Miliband, who is quite literally the undertaker of British industry, which was the home for the British working class. I mean, him going out there and talking about class, I mean, I think the only person probably worse is his brother, David. David, how can I get £1 million a year as an NGO president? Miliband is the other guy. There is, in the UK, there appears to me there's a House of Lords, and then there's like the Neo House of Lords, which is the current political class, who has all the privileges, you know, and all the income of the former aristocracy, but none of their intelligence and none of their devotion to their own country. It is quite frustrating, I have to admit.
It is frustrating, yes. And of course, the Miliband brothers are the sons of a Marxist academic who also did rather well in life. I mean, it's a curious little prism to look at.
But there was a time when Marxists and Social Democrats actually understood that industry is a good thing.
Correct.
Like this, we have a new form. You said it quite nicely, and it's kind of this university marinated kind of socialist that lives in the kind of woke net zero kind of bubble that has nothing to do with the traditional representatives of the British working class. I mean, I do like the concept of class because there are three classes at the moment in Britain. And again, I say this as a foreigner, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. There's the establishment class, then there is the migrant class, and then there is the class of what we used to call the British people. And there's only one of those three that you can ridicule, then you can mock, but that still has to pay the bill for the other two. And that's the third one. And that's why I understand that more and more people in Britain are absolutely outraged, and they should be. It's absolutely justified.
And it's interesting how class warriors, the sort of synthetic indignation of these people does not go across all areas and all subjects. If you try to get Ed Miliband to get animated about working class girls being the victims of industrial scale grooming gangs or issues that are going on in that kind of area, you'll be met with a wall of silence. There will be nothing to be said about that. Even our, the Jess Phillips, who's the Women and Equalities or Girls Minister, has almost nothing to say on this. That's a bit curious.
Yeah, and it's this, you're absolutely right, because they do not understand. I mean, this is the traditional mistake, by the way, without us getting too philosophical, of the Marxists. They don't understand. Most people don't define themselves just purely in economic terms. I mean, this is particularly true for what is left of the working class. So this is usually where, patriotism, commitment to one's community lies as well. Kind of the lower middle classes, they are important not just for economic reasons, they are very important for social reasons. This is where you had, working men's libraries and, general civil associations, all of this. It isn't just the economic aspect, because the idea that so many on the left in Britain and elsewhere have is that you just have to throw money at the problem. By the way, money we no longer have. Yep. That is not going to solve the problems that are much deeper and much more of a cultural nature than anything else. It is degrading very often the way in which the working class is being spoken about. Nobody speaks to them. It's that everybody speaks about them and thinks all they need are a few more handouts and things will get better. What they really crave is that they get their country and their dignity back. And the first politician, and I don't think, by the way, it's going to be Nigel Farage as an aside, but the first politician who really taps into that frustration reservoir is really going to clean up at the polls at the next elections.
I think you're absolutely right, and fascinating that you mentioned Mr. Farage. We might come back to that point. It's just, to me, if you're a government that reaches for that the class card, a left-wing government, Is this last chance saloon territory? Because, of course, this all came off the back of Keir Starmer's government almost imploding 48 hours ago. I've not heard really anything at all about this big class war that they're battling. Immediately, people like Angela Rayner came out and said, yes, I support the Prime Minister. A little bit odd she said that, because we know she wants to be the Prime Minister. Andy Burnham came out and said, I support the Prime Minister. Also odd, because he also wants to be the Prime Minister. And then suddenly, this class narrative pops up. This is the last bastion, isn't it, of the innings of a desperate government.
I mean, just to pick it up, the people you just mentioned, I mean, if you look at the greater Manchester metropolitan area and Andy Burnham, again, I don't want to get into any legal trouble, so I assume that he didn't know. But what you mentioned before, I mean, in this area of the UK, where the grooming gangs pretty much acted uninhibited by anybody, that just doesn't look good on his record. Just as for Keir Starmer, I mean, it's not really an excuse to say, oh my God, Peter Mandelson, I had no idea. The point is, if you're the captain of a ship, you have to know what your officers are doing. So this weird situation was where the leader of the country or the government can say, "Oh, I didn't know." Man, then you picked the wrong people. So this is not knowing is not an excuse, not in such a position.
Absolutely spot on. I have to get a word, Ralph, while you're with us. You mentioned there in passing you don't think Nigel Farage will be the man in number 10.
No, no. I mean, he might make it to number 10. But I do not think that he has good instincts. Again, as always, I say this as a foreigner, and I think he taps very well, which is an important element, into the, let's say, nostalgia. And I think it's a justified nostalgia. I don't mean this in a derogatory sense. The British people feel for the past, right? Kind of the sense, you know, the cigarette in one hand, and I'm an occasional smoker myself, and the pint in the other hand, down at the pub, right? And among a community, among people that you recognize, that you understand. But I think that Nigel Farage, given the trajectory in which Europe, the West, and Britain in particular is, I don't think that he will be willing to really make the steps that will be necessary to, you know, to basically revive Britain. And I think we see this sometimes when he's pushed by his base, it goes into the right direction. But very often, I believe that deep down, again, and I like the man, don't get me wrong, so the point, but I think that even he deep down probably thinks that the Britain that people want to get back is lost. I don't think that's the case, but sometimes this is how it feels to me.
Well, I was going to pick up on that, Ralph, because I'm genuinely fascinated. We throw out lines like broken Britain, and when you look at the headlines and you look at the government's curious list of priorities, you are forgiven for reasonably wondering, at the very least, wondering, you know, is this place an irredeemable pit of nonsense now? Is it salvageable? And if it is, what does it need to do that, Ralph?
I don't want to, you know, beat the same drum that probably many people on your show do, but in a sense, we are close to the final destination of a multicultural society. What I mean by this is that you no longer have a government of the people. You have a government that is, you know, administering, that is, you know, kind of trying to even out conflicts between different groups within society. I mean, this is we no longer. People always talk about common sense, but in order to have common sense in a country, people need to have something in common, and that part is becoming less and less and less and less. So it becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And again, this is not just a problem in the UK. If the sense of a shared past, a shared presence, and a shared future disappears, you might have a country on a map, but you don't have a country in reality. I'm going to sound like very poetic now, please forgive me, but to a large extent, you know, a country is a state of mind, right? It is something that you have an emotional bond to. And if a growing number of the people, and by the way, this is not just people with migrant background, this is like a disease that is also infecting people that have been in the UK for generations, right? If you no longer feel that bond, I mean, read the op-ed page of the Guardian, for example. If this is disappearing, if the elite itself is kind of, and you saw this with Keir Starmer when he once said that he actually prefers Davos to Westminster. Yeah. If they feel that their own country is actually too small for them, they just, you know, I'm the prime minister because that was the only thing on offer. That is, again, that's a terrible thing to look at one's own country. So if he now plays the class card and says, oh, I'm from the working class and I stand up for the, no, nobody believes it. I don't believe it, you don't believe it, and I think the majority of the British people doesn't believe it.
Yeah, spot on. Great stuff, Ralph. Lovely to have you on again, sir. Thank you, Ralph Schuhammer. He is a political theorist. Great to have him with us, and some big words there.